Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes, where we take you behind the curtain of the issues shaping our region. Today, we're joined by Ken Buckler, published author and president of Radio Free Hub City, a listener-supported newsroom committed to fact-based, non-partisan reporting. We talk about the collapse of local news, the rise of news deserts, and why separating news from opinion still matters. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Lowen.
and we have a returning guest, Ken Buckler. Ken, one of my favorite Facebook pages you own and publish and work. Can you tell us a little bit about Radio Free Hub City?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Radio Free Hub City, we started back in 2021. Originally started out as just an entertainment outlet, and I wanted to bring better entertainment locally for the Hagerstown area. And then I saw there was a really big need for more local news. So I was like, all right, you know what? Fine, I'll go ahead. I had already done one stint with local news. I had a publication years ago called the Washco Chronicle, and it never went anywhere. And I think the reason it never went anywhere is because I didn't have that entertainment factor in with it. So when I started combining the entertainment factor with the local news, it started to become a hit. And, we've, like I said, since 2021, news for Hagerstown and the greater Hagerstown region. In 2025, we hit a total of 500,000 total people served. So that was pretty good for me. I'm very happy that we've had that much success, that we've managed to help inform 500,000 people. Yeah, I mean, we try to stick with just straightforward factual reporting of local news, and then also we add in entertainment factor as well, separate from the news. And then we've actually got a few projects that we're working on now that's going to be starting this year, actually focused a little bit more kind of mixing news and entertainment. And some of that's going to be focusing on cold cases, missing persons, and we're going to throw some paranormal in there and talk about some local paranormal stuff as well. So I'm sure you've heard of the Snallygaster. So we're gonna start diving into the Snallygaster a bit, and we're actually gonna try to take some videos of some of the locations that it was actually seen at. So it's gonna be a good year for Radio Free Hub City, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to serve the community.
And you guys, your website ranks as what number for the most popular sources of information for Washington County?
Well, it depends on the search. I haven't focused a whole lot on traditional search engine optimization, and the reason for that, and I won't put my geek hat on too much, but there's a big shift in the industry right now where people are shifting away from pure or traditional search engines and shifting more towards artificial intelligence, generative AI, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini. They're actually incorporating, you've probably seen this if you've done a Google search anytime lately, they're actually incorporating in the Google search results at the very top an AI blurb about whatever it is you searched for. And so I've actually been focusing a lot more on becoming a trusted source, if you will, for the AI, because that is the new wave of search. That is where the industry is going. I'm happy to say that, if you go into most of the AI sources, if you go and you ask it, hey, I need a free local news source for Hagerstown, it usually recommends us.
We did an episode together when you were a guest previously about the news desert of this region. And the truth is that Radio Free Hub City is like water in a parched desert, because these big news conglomerates, they don't follow the news stories of Washington County. But you guys are hitting them, and you're hitting them good. And I know because of the lack of newspaper and radio coverage now, they're all collapsing all over the place. You guys are definitely fulfilling a real need in Washington County and Hagerstown. I enjoy it.
And even for the local newspapers, I mean, more and more, they're just publishing national news stories straight out of USA Today. I mean, so a lot of what is still left of the local newspaper, less and less of it is actually local. And essentially, you are one of the primary sources. I mean, I thought I saw a ranking somewhere that you were like 4th or 5th, and really even higher than that, because one of the websites that was higher ranked than you was your satire website. So in reality, you're like in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important to note, though, I don't measure our success by how well we do on Google. It's great if you rank on Google, but the problem with that is Google changes their algorithm constantly, so you can't ever rely on that. If you're trying to run a local news outlet or a podcast like this one or whatever, please pay attention. The best way to get it to grow is organically through loyal followers that become your champions. All right, and we have a set of loyal followers. And I can tell you, I can go into the Google Analytics that I have set up on the site, and it'll tell me there's about 200 people that consistently visit our site. And those 200 people are consistently sharing our articles, sharing our news, sharing our entertainment with all their friends and family. What ends up happening? Those friends and family, once they see enough, they realize we're a trusted source. They then share that out to their own network. They become one of our champions. It's a slow method. It's definitely not an expensive method, though. My total ad spend since creating Radio Free Hub City has been less than $100, and most of that was social media ads just to get our name out there.
Yeah, we took your advice. You actually gave us a very similar advice on the last time you were on the show. I picked your brain as much as I can because we were a fledgling podcast back then, and now we average 10,000 views a month, and we've used a lot of the techniques that you're describing. So thank you so much, Ken, for all of your mentoring of us. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love you guys, and I'm so glad that you guys really have a similar mission as I do, in that you guys don't really care about party lines. You don't care about who's on what side. You just want people informed, and that's all I really want to do. And I'll actually talk about that a little bit, because I know there was a few different news topics that we wanted to talk about. Great example on that as why we just want to keep people informed. All right, and this is one that has been going on for about 6 months now, and okay, probably a little bit less than that. And that's the Erika Bell ethics complaint filed by Paul Quarterman, and the arrest of her boyfriend, Terrence Murphy. And the things that I want to set the story straight on that one, okay, is I had no dog in that fight. I had in publishing that stuff. In fact, I knew about the issue probably about a month before it broke, and I held it back because there hadn't been any official charges against her filed or anything like that. And I kept hearing rumblings about it, but I'm like, I really, there's nothing there I can actually work with, because there's nothing there to tell. Well, once Senator Quarterman then, filed his ethics complaint and filed his Public Information Act, we went ahead and, all right, well, if he wants that footage, I'm going to ask for that footage too, so that everybody can see, and not just, allow a politician to selective release bits and pieces. So that's what I did. Not once have I ever actually even expressed any thoughts on it, other than I really think that he was wrong for publicly announcing the ethics complaint. Do I think he was wrong for asking the Ethics Commission to look into it? No, I don't think he was wrong for asking them to look into it. You should never feel bad about asking an Ethics Commission to look into something, but you shouldn't use it as a political weapon. And that's a problem that we had multiple times this past year. Councilman Sean Flaherty also was on the receiving end of that, and that a person who is now a county commissioner candidate filed an ethics complaint against him. Very vague complaint, went nowhere because it wasn't even in scope of the ethics board. I don't disagree with her asking the ethics board to look into it, but once again, I disagree with how it was publicized that, well, I asked them to look into it, but they didn't do anything. Well, yeah, of course they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything because it's not within the scope of the ethics.
Or there's no validity to it.
Yeah, well, I'm not the judge of that. I'm not going to be the judge of whether there was any validity to her complaints or not. She was saying that Councilman Flaherty was mistreating the women on the board. I don't know. I some of that I think was supposed to be accusations of things being done in closed session, which if that's the case, then why is she the one filing the complaint and not the women on the board? Being mean to people is not an ethics violation. It's not it's not against an ethics ordinance. It's not illegal to be an asshole. If it was, I'd probably already be in jail.
Yeah, I'll be doing time, I believe.
And the thing is that one of the points I think you're making with these ethic complaints is that they so obviously fall along political party lines. With Senator Quarterman, he's a Republican. His ethics complaint was against a Democrat. Now, it was based upon things that are on video and other kind of actually recorded things, not accusations. With the other one against Councilman Flaherty you're referring to, it was the president of the Washington County NAACP and the ladies on the city council are African American. So there's this obvious kind of party line, but it's not just locally. It seems to be something happening throughout the state of Maryland. I mean, about a month before the ethics complaint against Councilman Flaherty, the Frederick County School Board put an ethics complaint against one of their own members because this member said that he believed that teachers have First Amendment rights when it comes to how they talk to students.
The use of pronouns.
Yeah, the use of pronouns for LGBT students. And he's like, our teachers really do have their own First Amendment rights in this issue as well. That's what he said in the ethics complaint against him. And then there was another school board member in Baltimore where she was questioning the superintendent of the schools as to where the money is going. And she was put up on an ethics complaint for being too pushy in the meeting where she was questioning the superintendent. So it does seem to be weaponized.
It's also worth mentioning that the Erika Bell issue was really two issues. One, you've got the issue with the ethics complaint that should not have been publicized in the first place. Okay, actually, I'm going to say three issues. Second issue with that is that the ethics commission themselves never actually had their rules and procedures public on the city of Hagerstown's website. So how was Senator Quarterman supposed to know he wasn't supposed to release that information publicly anyway? I'm actually working to get that resolved. There were some other transparency issues related to the ethics commission. I have been working with the state as well as the ethics commission, and those are going to be resolved here. And the third issue is the matter of Erika Bell's boyfriend, Terrence Murphy. He was arrested based upon security camera footage that showed him carrying what appeared to be a firearm in a park. They never recovered any such firearm. So they held him for 3 months with the only evidence being that they had a video of him carrying something that looked like a firearm. As someone who is a very devout libertarian, I have serious issues with that because they had zero physical evidence. And as soon as they realized that he was just going to say, well, it wasn't a real firearm, they had to drop the case. Their entire case hinged on Councilmember Bell either providing them a firearm or testifying that it was a firearm. I have some serious issues with that. That should have never been the case. If they were going to do that, they should have executed a search warrant. If the search warrant can't come up with any physical evidence, you have nothing to hold him on. There's no way he should have been held for 3 months. I've got some serious issues with that. Here we have a person in a park. The area that park is in is not known as being the safest area of Hagerstown. I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit for carrying a real firearm or for carrying a pepper gun or even just for carrying something that looks like a firearm to deter somebody from screwing with you. Once again, I've got my libertarian hat on when I say that.
We just completed an episode, and it was with Adam Gravel, and we discussed that very matter. Why in the world would you lock somebody up for 97 days? They knew originally that he claimed it wasn't a firearm, and yet they still locked him up. They did no more investigation that we know of, or at least they're not talking about. They did no search warrants. They didn't do any investigations. The 2 officers involved in the arrest were dismissed. They're not even available anymore. We don't know why. They say it's an independent issue. There's just a lot of questions on that whole matter. From the police chief on down and the state's attorney's office, there are a lot of questions that people in Hagerstown deserve the answers to.
But also at the same time, I also know damn well that if I went into a park with a firearm strapped to my hip, even though I am a concealed carry holder, even though I have a concealed carry license, someone is calling the police on me, and I am going to jail while I'm still at that park. The fact that he had that there at the park and nobody blinked twice about it, and they didn't have any problem with that. It's a very confusing situation all around when push comes to shove, because it shouldn't be you arrest somebody after the fact just based upon a video like that. I also wonder how much worse it's going to get now that we're seeing more and more increased video surveillance across the county. This upcoming year is the increased proliferation of automated surveillance, AI-powered surveillance across the county, and what that means for privacy concerns.
Hagerstown has some of the most aggressive audio visual recording systems in the entire Western Maryland area. I mean, they're almost everywhere.
And they just got more aggressive.
And of course, the long term, like you mentioned, AI, which makes all this surveillance that much easier, cheaper, faster. What does it mean for society? I think that's going to be a big question ongoing for years. There are many interesting factors. I got to tell you, it's a little bit like a soap opera. I would recommend that people listen to the episode with Attorney Adam Gravel, who is also a candidate for state's attorney. But another big story for the state that popped up in 2025 is the Maryland Department of Health audit and what happened there. Can you give us a little bit of information about something that has probably gone dramatically underreported for voters and taxpayers of Maryland?
Well, there's two components of this. One is the reporting that I believe it was Maryland Matters did. Maryland Department of Health failed their audit, their financial audit, yet again. And this has been a recurring issue for multiple years. And a lot of the concerns are that they have expenses that they can't account for, or they have income they can't account for, which that boggles my mind. Just if you got income you can't account for, it was probably my tax dollars. Just give it back to me. But that was the statewide reporting. That was the issue that most people focused on this year. But there was another issue that actually happened here in Washington County. Well, Washington County is what exposed, and that the state has their own state-run mental health care for people that need to be committed. Typically, if they are some sort of criminal charges involved, but they aren't necessarily competent to stand trial. They have a state-run system for that. And of course, they only have so many beds. Well, it came to light here in, I believe it was June, that there's an ongoing wait list of about 200 or more people waiting to get admitted for involuntary committing to Maryland's mental health system. At one point, one of the Washington County judges actually brought Maryland Department of Health representative onto the stand and made them testify, because he was holding the department in contempt, because apparently the Maryland Department of Health has been spending money where they only have so much money available, and why don't they use that money to increase their beds? Well, part of the reason why they're not increasing their beds is because they're actually using that money to hire immigration attorneys for undocumented people in their system. Why are they hiring the immigration attorneys when there is legal aid out there that'll do it, when there is organizations out there that actually have resources dedicated to that? I don't know. I can't answer that. And the terrifying part is they can't answer that either, because they have no documented policy justifying hiring those attorneys, even though a representative said on the stand that they hired 4 of them, and they also can't tell you how much money is being spent on those attorneys. Because I actually filed a Public Information Act request asking them how many in Maryland's mental health system are undocumented. We don't know. All right, how much money are you spending on attorneys on these undocumented people? We don't know. They don't know. They have no idea how many are in the system. They have no idea how much they're spending on attorneys, when legal matters are not a matter of Maryland Health. There are separate departments There's separate organizations, there's nonprofits out there that'll help with that. I'd be perfectly fine if they said we're referring them to this organization here that's going to get them legal aid. Please, okay, please get them the legal aid they need. Everybody deserves representation, but you shouldn't be spending health dollars to do it. Yeah, and we finally just got the data back here earlier in December, and I sent them a follow-up on it, and I said, hey guys, so I just want to make sure we're clear on this. You're saying that you do not know how much you're spending on this. Never responded to my answer, responded to my email, but that's why they failed their audit, because they have unaccounted for expenses, and that's a perfect example right there of one of those unaccounted expenses, where they know they're paying the attorneys, they just don't know how much.
What this is kind of an indicator of a bigger issue that actually has been touched upon a number of times as we've talked to individuals here at Mid-Maryland Votes, is that issue with this money going towards undocumented immigrants in just various ways. It's similar to kind of the issue where in Hagerstown we have 4 nonprofits that are being paid to bring refugees into Washington County, and it's like, well, why are our tax dollars going to pay nonprofits to specifically target refugees to come into Washington County? I mean, I don't have a problem with refugees coming into Washington County, but why are tax dollars paying for it here? Another issue is that I believe refugees or undocumented immigrants, one or the other, get priority in Washington County for Section 8 housing. It's kind of part of this larger issue. And on a national level, it also has some clear similarities to what we are hearing about with Minnesota, where tax dollars are going towards daycare centers, and it's been exposed as a fraud. It falls in line with what has been discussed with those $700 million in what's called deficiencies that the state government is spending. We had Senator Folden on, who spoke about the fact that the Governor Moore administration cannot say how much money has been given to nonprofits. It's a wild and really, concerning situation. There is money going places in an unrestrained way, and it's like everywhere. It's like cockroaches. They're just popping up everywhere, and that's really what I think your reporting is partially getting at.
It's a huge issue in that we have, if you're not tracking how much is being spent, then you have no idea how much is being spent. That means basically the budget's unlimited, because if there's no accountability, there's no tracking, they're going to spend as much money as they want. And that's not the way that public funds should be done. My paycheck, your paycheck, his paycheck should not be going towards a fund that we have no idea what it's actually going towards, or how much is it going towards. We should be able to account for every tax dollar, and that's why we have these audits. All right. And by the way, I've looked through locally for Washington County's audits, Hagerstown's audits. Both of those audits, pristine. In fact, I believe it was Hagerstown actually got a award for having such excellent audits multiple years in a row. They're doing their job properly. They're actually taking care of tracking where all the money, all the revenue comes from, where all of the expenses go to, and they're making sure that all of that balances out. And that's just good government. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be transparent. It's supposed to be accountable. All right. And that's why you have the word accounting, because you are making sure that you have it accountable for where the money is going. That's why we have these audits. And
yeah, I read that same report, Ken, and I agree with you. Hagerstown got a great rating on that audit, but the truth is that that's how it should be. You shouldn't get credit for tracking all of the dollars that the public funds that you're spending. That's what your job is. The fact that there's so many government agencies not doing that properly shows you that we got a major problem on our hands. And these are all and you said it once, but we need to say it again. These are public funds. These are taxes. These federal agencies have an obligation to be able to tell the taxpayers where every dime is going. And the fact that they can't is troubling. Yeah,
exactly.
That was a huge story. Any other huge stories, Ken, out there that you wanted to cover from 2025?
Well, the last one I did want to mention is, and this is a national and a local story, and that's the problem of political violence. And I think that this has been a problem for many years now, and that goes back to multiple attempts at trying to assassinate then presidential candidate Donald Trump, now president. But then we look at stuff like Charlie Kirk, where he was assassinated because of his political beliefs, because he dared speak out, and people didn't like what he said. Locally, we've started seeing this now. All right, and multiple times, the Indivisible, yeah, that's the right group, Indivisible group has held protests, and these are intended to be completely peaceful protests, by the way. But they've held protests in downtown Hagerstown across the country, and it's a couple of these protests, counter protesters have showed up. Okay, that's fine. Absolutely. Express your First Amendment right. But unfortunately, at a couple of these, there's ended up being incidents, physical violence involving the counter protesters and the protesters. And the most recent one, they actually caught on camera, and come to find out, it was actually a state delegate candidate here in Washington County. Baker is the last name, and the video shows the delegate candidate basically standing on the corner at Hagerstown Square. And I don't want to say harassing, but heckling is probably the best term for it. Heckling the counter protester that was there with in full Trump regalia and signs talking about say Democrats are terrorists and stuff like that. You know what? All of that's fine. Heckle somebody you want to tell them that their opinion is wrong. That's great. But then when that wasn't getting anywhere, the delegate candidate takes a step back, winds up, punches the Trump supporter in the back of the head, and sends him out into the square. Luckily, there wasn't any traffic coming by, or he actually would have been hit by a car. It's like when it comes to the political climate right now, it's like it's a powder keg, and people are just lighting the fuse here and there, and we're having these little tiny pieces of explosions, but I don't think we've seen the big thing go off yet, and I hope we don't.
I happen to agree with you, and the civility is gone. Ability for people to hear hard opinions and ideas from the other side and not overly react. We're such a fragile society now, Ken. Everybody's fragile. Yeah. If they hear something that they don't like, verbal violence or whatever, however you term it, so that you can react in an over-the-top fashion. Look, just let's all be adults. That's one of the reasons why we started Mid-Maryland Votes. We just wanted a place where people could talk like they did in the old days, where you could talk from different political backgrounds, different genders, different, religions, whatever you want to do, and talk and actually listen to each other. And that's unfortunately something that our society is seeing. It might be the death of it.
I hope not.
I don't either. And that's why we continue to do this show, right? So, and look, we have different opinions about a lot of things in our lives, but we need to be able to allow people to express that without getting our butts hurt and deciding that we're going to throw a punch. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's not how the democracies are supposed to work.
And I see it on actually in the comments of some of our articles on Facebook. Is I've had to, at least on one occasion now, actually hide a comment and report it to the Washington County Sheriff's Office because it was actually advocating for violence against an elected official. I hate doing that. Because I hate censoring anybody in the first place. I think everybody should be able to speak freely as long as it's not inciting violence or anything like that. But in that case, they were clearly trying to incite violence, and I had to report it to the Sheriff's Office. It terrifies me when I see how much anger and animosity there seems to be on both sides, by the way. I hope that we somehow find a way to return to sanity.
And that's, of course, the key issue, because yes, there was the assassination attempts against President Trump. There was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but then on the other side of the aisle, there was that assassination of the Speaker of the House for Minnesota as well. a number of months ago. And yes, when you look locally,
or Pennsylvania governor,
yeah, exactly. And the
firebombed the Pennsylvania governor's residence.
Even locally, like you mentioned, I mean, there was that incident, which obviously is inexcusable. I mean, it was inexcusable and immature. I mean, it could have just ended as a humorous exchange, and that is probably what it should have been. But it kept getting pushed and pushed. The political parties, Democrats and Republicans, they have social media presence, and they have posts that they make. And one of the political parties, I mean, it seems to have been toned down a little bit, but for really most of this year, about every second day, they were putting up a post talking in terms of violence. Like it was referring to the other side as evil, fascist, and just resistance as a violent act. And we had a candidate for the Democratic Central Committee for Washington County on, and one of the points he made is that when people feel unheard, they become violent. But what his point was, I think, is that we have reached such a level where the standard for what means violence is really disagreement. If you disagree, there's violence, and it is such a dangerous thing, as you guys are saying. But how do we turn it around? I mean, I think in part what we're doing right now, just being informative, people coming along, being informative, like Radio Free Hub City, 500,000 views in a year. And, that's the sort of thing where people are smart. And if we get out of our echo chambers, and really, I think we just need to call it propaganda. And that part of the solution is just getting out of that and learning facts and listening to people from the other side talk. And what you find, I think, is that really in all circumstances, people are 95, 97+% on the same side of the aisle on almost every issue.
The truth is that there are more people in the middle than in the extremes. And unfortunately, social media and others, in order to maintain power, I believe, you keep people divided, you keep people at each other's throats, been the historical way to attain and retain power. I agree. It's something that we have to cool down the temperature, and we have to start listening to each other again.
One of the things that I always strive for at Radio Free Hub City, we don't put a partisan spin on the stuff. And because of that, we get accused of being partisan by both sides. And the reason for that is we don't kneel to confirmation bias. We don't just run the Democrat side or the Republican side. We run the straight facts of the matter as best we can. And if there's a Democrat and a Republican side, we try to put both in there if we feel it's relevant. But a lot of times, I don't even want to put that stuff in there. I just want to put in there the straight facts and let somebody make up their own minds. And we have lost subscribers because of that. I know we have. And I have in there, as part of my preamble to, hey, become a paid subscriber, I've got in there, it says, if you are, if you're looking for somewhere that isn't going to have confirmation bias, you found your place. If you're just looking for confirmation bias, go elsewhere. We're not going to provide news that you're going to like if you just want stuff that always meets your expectations. And losing money because of that. I know we are. If I would just slant us towards the right or slant us towards the left, we would quadruple our profits overnight. I don't, because I want to sleep at night. I want to do the right thing, not the profitable thing. I'm losing money in the process, but I can live with myself that way.
I agree, and it's admirable because, frankly, we need more outlets like yours, which, just give us the facts. Let human beings decide on their own. And the keyboard warriors on social media, man, you can never keep them happy. Ken, we're the same way. We interview a Democrat, and all of a sudden we're a left-leaning liberal commie. Yep. And if we we have a Trump supporter, we interview, all of a sudden we're Nazis, running around, fascists or whatever. People will have their opinions and do what they want. We're going to continue to do what we do, which is to provide a venue that people can come and share their ideas, and people can make up their own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And good on you guys for that. Because, we try to do the same. The last two interviews that I did, one was a Democratic Central Committee candidate. Mm-hmm. The other one was a Republican candidate for Congress. Two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But you know what? I like talking to both of them because both of them had great ideas.
We have people come on here and they are fascinating. One of my favorite guests is the Green Party candidate. He is fascinating, and his ideas are amazing. Do I agree with what he says? Not in the least. But what great ideas this man has, and he's captivating. Right. I love talking to him. And any curious person should enjoy talking to somebody with a different viewpoint. And to Ethan's point, these echo chambers that are on social media where you just hear the same hateful rhetoric over and over again, of course we're breeding violence out of that. That's how it works.
Let me give a shout out to former County Commissioner Ron Bowers, because he said this phrase to me, and it's really stuck with me, is if two people are on a board together, and those two people always agree on every single issue, one of those people is unnecessary. Differing points of view is what is critical to progress, because if we don't have the differing points of view, if people are always agreeing, then they're always going to do the same old thing over and over, and we're never going to innovate new solutions.
And I've always noticed, just in my personal life, that individuals, that when they say something, and even if it's something that I disagree with, even if it's something that clearly, by everyone's estimation in the room, that was a ridiculous thing to say, if you drill down deep enough, oftentimes, because it's a different point of view, it's quite interesting. And you really can learn something if you focus on other people's perspectives. You find out that people are actually quite intelligent. But we're not intelligent individually. We're intelligent together.
Well, Ken, we really enjoyed having you on. We all agree on the same point. We may have different ways of thinking, but we need venues more like Radio Free Hub City and Mid-Maryland Votes so that people can express themselves and make up their own minds. And that's what we did on this episode of Mid-Maryland Votes. Thank you, Ken, for being with us. We appreciate you. Hopefully you can come back sometime soon and give us the more skinny on what's going on in Hagerstown. Now, I'm not skinny, but I want to hear the skinny Ken. Okay?
I'm not either, so that's okay.
Thanks so much for being with us. Well, that's been this episode of Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my friend and co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we thank you for being part of this episode of Mid-Maryland Votes. Look up Radio Free Hub City for great news in this area around here, and continue to watch Mid-Maryland Votes. If you liked what you saw, share it with a friend. If you didn't like it, share it with an enemy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time on
Our thanks to Ken Buckler of Radio Free Hub City for a grounded conversation about journalism without an agenda. Just facts, transparency, and trust in your audience. If you care about local news that informs instead of persuades, this is one you won't want to miss. Like, follow, and share for more content like this, and we'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.